So let's move on to the requests received page. Here, I want to show all the requests for the active coach. And for the moment, I'll simply show all requests here since we don't really have an active coach yet. That's something which will follow soon though. So here, I'll simply add a new section, let's say, in which I want to use my base card to have that general container style we're using throughout the app. And in there, we can add a header with a h2 tag inside where we say requests received, because that's what this page is there for. And now below that, I want to render an unordered list with all the requests we received, or at the moment with all the requests in general. And below that, I actually want to have an h3 tag where I say you haven't received any requests yet, which should show up if no requests have been created and stored yet. So we'll come back to the list items later. For the moment, let's add styling and a script section. So first of all, I'll add scoped styling. And as always, attached you find the requests received CSS file, which contains the CSS styles you can copy and paste between your scoped style tags here. And with that done, now we can work on the script part of this component. And here, the goal is in the end simple. We want to get access to the requests we're managing in Vuex. And therefore, as we did always before, when we wanted to get access to Vuex data, we will use a computed property. So we can add our computed key here, and then in here, I will add a computed property named received requests, where I now want to reach out to the store and for the moment get all the requests we find in there. So in getters, in the requests folder, I'll export an object and add a requests field here where I get the state automatically as an argument, as you learned, and where we can then return state requests to return this list of requests. And in requests received, we can now reach out to this getter here in this computed property. We can reach out to this store getters, and now since it's namespaced, then reach out to requests, which is the namespace name, / requests, which is also the getter name here. And then return this here in this computed property. I will add a second computed property where I say has requests and where I simply wanna return this store getters requests / has requests, which is a getter we have yet to add to Vuex. So let's quickly do that. Copy that and go to getters in the requests module. Add the has requests getter, and there I want to return basically state requests and state requests length greater 0. So this will yield true if we have at least one request. Otherwise, it yields false. And I added this extra computed property here because we can use that with vif to show this unordered list if it's true, but then with velse show this h3 tag if it's not true, if we have no requests. So now with that, we got access to the requests. Now we need to render them. And for that, we want to render a bunch of list items here in this unordered list, though I will outsource the concrete item into a new component. So for that, I'll go to components, and then in there, next to coaches, layout, and UI, we can add a requests subfolder to manage all the request related components. For me here, that will be just one component though, the request item component, which has a template where we render a list item, let's say. And in that list item, we have a div in which I simply have an anchor tag where I want to output the email address and make it clickable to automatically open an email client once you click it. And below that, the message in a paragraph maybe. So here I want to interpolate the message of a user. Here between the anchor tag, I want to output the email address that was sent along with that request. And I want to bind the ref attribute here to to a link that automatically opens the local email client. For that, we can add a script here, and first of all accept props, because we are going to render request item as part of the list in requests received. Requests received has those requests, so we can then simply feed the data into the individual list items through props. And the data we'll need is the email address and the message, so the keys I'm using here in the template. But I'll also add computed prop here, and that's the email link, simply to put that logic into JavaScript and not into the template. And here I want to return mail2 : plus this email. And that's a special instruction the browser understands. If this is your link in an anchor tag, the browser will automatically open your email client with this email address pre-filled into a new email that opens up. So here we can then point at email link. And as always, attached you also find some styling which we can add here. It's the request item CSS file. Copy and paste the styles into your component, and we should then have the look and the behavior of this component which we need. So back in requests received, we can now register this component as a local component. So import request item from going up, into components, into requests, to request item.view, and then here add components and register request item as a local component. And that of course allows us to use it here in the template like this, and now render multiple instances of this component with v4 by going through all the requests in received requests, which is our computed property down there. And now here we want to add a key, set this to request.id because every request has an ID, and also pass in the email address, which is the user email field. In Vuex, in the action here, I store the email under a user email field. That's why I have to access it by that field here in requests received, and feed the message prop into request item by accessing request.message. So with that, we implemented almost all we need to do. There's one thing left. Our getters here are defined, but just as before, we need to add them to our module object. So we need to import getters from /getters.js and then add them here in this module's object, into this module object for the requests module. With that done, if we reload this app, we see you haven't received any requests yet. But then if we contact a coach from our email address, hi, I'd like to get some coaching. Can you help me? If I send this message, under requests, we see it here. And if I send another message to the other coach, for the moment, we'll see messages of all coaches. Hi, I'm Max, and I really need some support in web dev. If I add this request, we see this as well. And if we click such an email address, this opens up the email client with that email address pre-populated. So that's another nice feature. Okay, so now we also can send requests, but of course now we always see all requests of all coaches. And that's not what we want. So let's try to restrict this. And in our root state, we actually already got a user ID, assuming that this is us. So if we register as a coach, this will be the ID of the registered coach. And thereafter, only messages sent to that coach should be showing up for us. So that'll be the next step.